Blood flow through the heart. We need to know the chambers of the heart, the valves that are in between those chambers, the blood vessels, the circuits, and the direction of blood flow. I've made this a short video so that you can watch it several times if you need to. Blood in the systemic circuit is out in the body, providing oxygen to the muscles and neurons in the digestive system, and picking up carbon dioxide and returning to the heart in the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The blood is coming up in the inferior vena cava and flowing down in the superior vena cava, and that blood is arriving at the right atrium. So remember, as you're looking at this would be like looking at your patient. So this is the right side of the patient's body, and this is the right atrium. The blood's under low pressure and it's low in oxygen, and it will begin to flow from the right atrium to the right ventricle as it arrives. This valve stays open unless this right ventricle is contracting. So the blood is filling in the ventricle. It does not fill up to the top. It's filling, but it doesn't fill all the way up. The walls of the ventricles contract and the blood flows through the pulmonary semilunar valve. Now it's entering the pulmonary circuit. So the pulmonary circuit is where the blood is leaving the heart and going out to the lungs and coming back to the heart. So pulmonary circuit is to the lungs and back. Systemic circuit is out to the body and back. So this blood leaving the right ventricle is low in oxygen, and now it's somewhat high in pressure. It's going to go out through the pulmonary trunk to the left pulmonary artery and right pulmonary artery. Don't let this trick you. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. So not all arteries are high in oxygen. In the pulmonary circuit, the arteries are low in oxygen, and they're going to carry that blood out to the lungs and back, and now the blood has higher levels of oxygen, and it's returning through the pulmonary veins. And so even though it's high in oxygen, we still call that a vein because it's returning to the heart in the left pulmonary veins. All right, now we're in the left atrium. So this is blood that's oxygenated now, and it's returning to the left atrium. It's again under low pressure but higher oxygen, and it's flowing through the open left atrioventricular valve into the left ventricle. When the ventricles contract, these AV valves close due to the pressure of the blood inside the ventricle. You'll notice that the walls of the left ventricle have thicker muscle. This is a muscular wall around the ventricles that squeezes to contract the blood and put it under pressure. So that blood is going to leave that left ventricle through this aortic semilunar valve. That's the aortic semilunar valve. Looks like a garlic roll. And so the blood is leaving through that under pressure and coming into the aorta. So this is connecting to this aorta here. So part of the confusion with the heart is that we can't see all the parts at once. So understand that this aorta is starting here at this valve and is behind the pulmonary trunk. All right, let's look at the vessels. The aorta is large and strong. It's elastic, and that is taking oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the body. So that's the beginning of the systemic circuit. This is the ascending aorta, the aortic arch, and the descending aorta. Another vessel to recognize is the pulmonary trunk. This is the pulmonary trunk This is considered an artery because it's carrying blood away from the heart. This is blood low in oxygen, and this is the beginning of the pulmonary circuit. Left pulmonary artery, right pulmonary artery. Superior vena cava is carrying blood from the upper body to the right atrium. The inferior vena cava is carrying blood from the lower part of the body to the left atrium. The pulmonary veins are returning blood, oxygenated blood, to the left atrium. Chambers: right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. So blood returns from the circuit into the atria and then goes through the AV valves into the ventricles. These valves stay open as the blood flows through. There is no valve here where the blood comes back into the atria. These contract at the same time. The atria contract, and then the ventricles contract a split second later. When the atria contract, it squeezes that last bit of blood down into the ventricles. When the ventricles contract, these AV valves close and these semilunar valves open. So these are one-way valves. This one's going to open under pressure. This one's going to close under pressure. That's the way they're built. Same thing here. The two atria contract at the same time. The two ventricles contract at the same time. You see this increased wall, increased size of the wall. That's the muscle of the left ventricle. Has to apply more pressure to that blood to get it out through the systemic circuit.